Good evening. It
It
is 6 p.m. on the 25th. Public input. Anyone that's a public person has anything to say?
Who's on the agenda?
There's a couple of them. Johnny, when I
Oh, okay,
I'm sorry.
that's okay.
It says sit on.
You can cross it out.
Is it spelled S-I-D?
Yes.
No, it's not.
Okay, minutes, item C of the January 28th board meeting.
Motion may be accepted as printed.
I'll second. I'll second.
Discussion? Any concern, any changes? Ma'am? No? All those voting to approve, say aye. Opposed?
Just had the record show I vote because I wasn't here for that.
That's no
Okay.
space.
The January 28th Personnel Committee meeting.
Oh, make a motion may be accepted as printed.
Okay. Second by anyone?
Can we do that since
We can't do it, right? Not
You
yet.
can't approve it, you don't have a second.
First and second. Okay. Can we just move this to next month?
Sure.
Okay. Very good. Item D, Executive Director's Report.
Well, we've been having an interesting winter. An article in the paper today about our water main breaks. When we see these big swings in temperatures, we've been seeing some breaks, although so far this week has been quiet, although I should not say that. We've had 25 breaks since December, quite a few in January, actually. A lot of them on smaller mains, and we did receive a map. We had plotted out where most of the breaks had occurred. But main problem is getting to the break. When the water bubbles out of the ground, it covers the valves in ice, so you have to chip away the ice just to get to the valves to shut them down. And we've been finding about 3.5 feet of frost, so that it actually has to be jackhammered through to be able to get to the main. So it's very time consuming, very cold, wet work, and I really need to congratulate our guys. They've been doing a fantastic job.
That's what I wanted to do, and for the record, I want to go on record commending them for the outstanding work they've done in this bad condition, really severe condition. People don't realize that when they get up in the morning, they take a hot shower and complain about the roads not being plowed and getting to work and all this, but their water's there. And those people have done yeoman work, should be commended.
And put it in the context of the amount of water breaks that are happening in other communities and aren't being solved as quickly as ours. Because I read internet and there's a lot of communities ranging all the way down south that have had very serious problems. And so it's not isolated to us
No.
by any means.
I think Cranston had one last week or weekend where 1,000 homes were shut off for a while.
Oh, yeah.
And it happened at night and right in the Cranston-Johnston line. So fortunately for us, that has not happened yet. To that degree.
Thank goodness. Generally, they've been fairly small sections, but being a fairly small amount of people, but of course not having water can be pretty dramatic.
Of course.
And they're used to having it on demand.
Could I ask you a question? Was there a water line break down at the entrance of Colt and the Colt Park in Bristol Beach? Because it was dug up over there, and I was wondering if that was a result of a water leak. It looked like it was.
There was a big patch over there, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it got plowed up. I rode through there last week and it was kind of,
Yeah, exactly.
it was right over that patch where they had, we had fixed. Remember there was a break there before or late fall? Right at the intersection.
There was right at the intersection where
Yeah,
the water
yeah.
main went across.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, there wasn't a break there, but,
But that temporary patch was kind of like dug up and
Okay.
I think just from plowing.
oh, that could have done it.
It looked like it had an upheaval,
Yeah.
but I just wondered if it was a break, but it wasn't that true.
Nope, thank goodness. And speaking of the operators, we are going to have 2 more operators retiring this year. So we did advertise For anyone interested in applying, we will be giving an exam to meet the minimum qualifications for the operator position. And then once people have passed the exam, they'll go on a list and we'll interview from there
Is there any age limit on
positions
that?
as they come available.
Any age with Frank looking for something?
He's got to be able to lift 90 pounds.
All at once?
I can do the stages, but
Tell me you go to the gym, you gotta find
let's get a common, that's it.
I mean, it's an 8-hour job, so 5 pounds here.
Try to make it happen there.
Get an hour for lunch.
And the Barrington and Central Bridges, there have been some movements on the work there. Ken, could you give a summary as to what's happening?
Yes, we met last week with the DOT. The weather has held up, obviously, a couple of the issues, but the equipment has been ordered for the Warren Bridge here. They are in the process of designing one more piece for it. We're trying to get a work schedule down. The chlorination is going to have to take place on that one. And then the Central Bridge, the pipeline that they're installing has been installed across that. They are redesigning the support system for it to make it better. And that's going to be done as soon as the weather breaks. So they're both on target. They've been very receptive and very cooperative with us. So as soon as the weather gets to where we can worry about dumping water on the streets without it freezing and things like that when we flush, we'll be able to get those finished up.
And the Anawan Dam project has been on hold. They're supposed to start again next week, Ken, with
They are
moving snow
Yeah, they
and
did.
getting access.
submitted a request for an extension on the deadline. Obviously, there's about 12 inches, 14 inches of ice on the pond. And the dilemma was on the low inlet outlet structures, concrete, they had to do concrete repairs to where the temperature got. They have to encase it, heat it, to get the concrete up to the temperature where the bonding would work well. So there's no sense in trying to push it when it was 5 degrees out, because if they lost the temperature, the quality would get affected. So they'll be back out there hopefully next week, as Pam said, because the temperature's starting to drop back up again. They have to seed, that's pretty much all that's left, besides the loom and the seeding, which will take place in April with the growing season. So everything's progressed well. They do have that low inlet outlet gate to install, but that's been held up because of the weather.
And they can't wait too long for that because then it'll start flooding.
Right, we have to.
So they've got to catch
They've
it.
got to do it before the melt season. But the Anawan club personnel are very happy with the way it's progressed. The contractor and the Indians work very well coordinating with them, so we have no complaints, which is a big plus.
Yeah, if I could just ask a question, I'm looking at the last line here, it states, although it is warranted, we are awaiting more specifics regarding liabilities. I'm not quite sure what that is.
Well, that's for, depending how much time we give them, if the waters start rising, who's going to be responsible for any extra work that might result in things like that, that we want that outlined in any type of agreement for the extension of time.
So the weather is not an excuse for them?
It's an excuse for the delay, but we can't allow it to delay to the point that it runs into other problems.
Do you have to negotiate with them for the extension of the deadline, or?
They requested the extension, we don't have to approve it. In other words, they couldn't be charged that time, but obviously with this weather, it's kind of hard to hold anybody to working in
I guess my question is, does it get into a formal phase,
Yes,
the agreement?
yes,
Okay, the extension.
yes. It all has to be documented and agreed to what exactly the parameters are, and that's what we're working on.
Is the granting of an extension up to us or up to you?
Up to me.
As long as we've waited to get anything down there, period, I can't see an extension being anything.
No, and obviously the conditions, they couldn't do the work under the conditions we've had the last few weeks anyway. And Sue and the engineering group have been putting in a lot of time and effort getting our bid documents together for Market Street and Child Street improvements. We're going to be doing some water main replacements and connecting some dead ends to provide better fire flows and water quality. And also the Foot Street and Princess Hill projects we were looking to do last year and to finish up the Barrington project in the Maple Street area. So that will greatly improve the fire flows of the district.
So all three of these projects will be done this year?
Yes. They'll be ready to bid next month. So they may or may not be ready to approve for the board meeting next month. We may actually need to do one earlier in April. Perhaps a special meeting to approve the projects.
Then they would start maybe by June or even May or?
Yes.
Okay. Very good.
Just something from my report, just anyone who's interested in coming to the science fair as a judge, you're all welcome. It's on March 21st. Bristol County Water Authority gives prizes to kids from Bristol County who do projects related to drinking water. So basically it involves going there on the day of the judging and judging those kids to decide who the winner is. Brad came last year. I can tell you it was a fun time. We do have, Sue Andrade kind of organizes the awards from Bristol County, and she is going. But if anyone is interested, you're welcome.
Get in touch with you.
Get in touch with me. It involves probably 4 hours on a Saturday, March 21st.
Lunch is provided.
Lunch is provided, Brad can tell you.
Is it good, guys? Is that
Good.
good? They go back in this year?
It wasn't that good of a lunch.
Okay. Do we have time for the financial report? Is anyone here to present that information?
Unless there are any questions, I'll just give I think I have 2 minutes, is that what?
No, no.
There you go.
We're 11 months into the year, we're going into the golden month of February, which is our busiest, where we finally take all those things we have in some buckets, some capital projects, and decide what we're gonna go and push the fixed assets, expense off, make sure all our reserves are in good shape. I just moved some reserve money back into the cash today, about $250,000. From paying principal, we get back 10% of the balance. So that was in our budget. I think we had about $270,000. So there's a little bit more in the beginning of the year. So make sure we get all that money back in before the end of the year. Other than that, I mean, for the 11 months, we're very much on target. The revenue is up, I think, 3% over budget. Expenses are 4.4% under budget, so we're good in both respects of that. The dollars billed is up 3.9%, which is basically consumption basically matched last year. We're within 0.3%. So with a 3.9% increase in revenue, that's the 4% rate increase from last year. Debt service took a little dip, only because revenues in January were about $300,000 under normal. Basically, due to the big storm, that last week we didn't collect hardly anything. So we collected $700,000, where we usually get $1 million in January. February right now is going to surpass the normal February, so we'll make that all up this month.
Bounce back.
So a lot of people were snowbound or whatever, didn't get their stuff in the mail or whatever. We are testing new software for our 3.25 rate increase. So we're running the program through sample data, it's actual mirrored data, just compared to cranking out a bill to make sure that it's applying everything properly. Because March 1st, is next week. So we're working hard on that. Other than that, it gets down to crunch time as we get into the audit phase of the year. The auditors will be coming in just about around the 10th of April, tax time, and we'll be here 3 to 4 weeks as they normally are. Then at the end of May, we have our annual meeting where we present the annual report and the audited financials. So, I mean, we're in good shape. I also funded some of the OPEB reserve, the IFI reserve, and the stability reserve before the end of the year. So we get those funded per the numbers we had presented to the board previously. So everything's in good shape. Ray had asked me a question,
I'm just trying to understand that.
but I can give you a quick one. The number that you saw, the accrued pension, the net accrued pension, that is what the actuaries who review the OPEB come up with, of what our net pension, the obligation is.
Okay.
So that goes in, that's a balance sheet account. The amount that's funded to the pension plan is shown on the profit and loss. And I don't think in the summary it breaks that down, but under the benefits section, I think we're at 290,000 going into the last month.
Well, I get that leads into the question. On the Washington Trust statement, account statement, the very last page of your report, just for my clarification, the receipt, the 260,000 year to date, is that what our contribution has been?
That's
To date?
that's on the pension year, not on the calendar, not on our
On the
fiscal
pension year, not on the fiscal year.
Right,
Okay. But that's what was contributed.
right. We bumped that up. You can see the receipt was 39,000. That was bumped up to increase it to that discount of 6% versus 8% we talked about last month.
So that 260 is our contribution to put it on as a receipt.
Those are the receipts that we
And
sent.
that is for a calendar year, correct?
That's for the pension year,
Calendar is like June to,
July 1st till,
June 30th.
right,
yeah, okay.
okay,
But it is for 1 year,
right,
1 year period. Okay.
all right. That should come out, I think like what I talked about, there's, during the fiscal year, it should come out to what the budget is, and then on the pension year, it should come out to what the pension requires with that 6% discount. It's up, I think it went up to 350 or something like that.
Yeah. That answers my question.
It'll be interesting to see how February looks with the market hitting. It's very volatile. I mean, January tanked, February is hitting new records, so we'll see how we end up for the year. But I mean, everything else, so much is the same every month. If you go to the budget page, on page 5, you can see how close we are on things such as salaries. Administrative salaries were 99.7% of budget. So a lot of it, we're very, very close. Salaries of the building department were 99.3%. Can't get any close. We can get closer than that. Then under salaries of the operations department, we're at 104.7. But there's also, if you look at the next line, is a contra account, 133,000. That's money that might be applied to something else that wasn't included in that. So it brings that 104 down to just about 20%. No, I'm very pleased how the years come out so far compared to what we had budgeted for the year. So. You good?
Good.
Good.
Dennis?
Thank you, sir. Item F, request for abatement, Warren Little League. The representatives were unable to make it tonight, but Pam said they would be able to make it next month.
What are they asking for? Oh, quick, 1 minute. They got a leak or something over there?
They had a leak and they were asking for that to be abated. This would be their third request.
In what time frame? 1 year?
I believe it's been over several years.
And are the leaks on their property? or-
Right, on their side, obviously after the meter. There has been a history of their opening and closing our valves too, which are not allowed.
Oh, they do it?
So at the last meeting, the board had requested a policy of how they would handle this in going forward in the future. And I just provided the board with what the policy they sent. I would recommend that we edit it and send it back to them for the next meeting, perhaps, whereby we make it clear that it's the BCWA will operate the main valve in the street. They can operate any valves inside the premises that they have.
Now, would they, just a side note, would they be eligible for that insurance policy information that went around to homeowners, you know, in case you have,
No, that's residential only.
okay, listen.
And do you remember what the figure was offhand for that last one?
It was about 2,000.
How much?
Yeah.
$2,000 to
$52
build.
and 99 cents.
You know, would be good for next month's meeting, because I think Joe Bonata had information
152.
going back.
99.
If we had
Yes.
that, plus the amount that's owed, we could have that with the next monthly packet, and also maybe send that out to Mr. Calendar ahead of time, so see what's happened in the past and what we've done, so we all can see what we've done in the past for them and the amount that's owed now, to date. And then if we can have it also, we can have that information, make a decision next month as to.
Joe put the report together, but he didn't come tonight because he didn't think people were
So
showing
that's
up.
okay.
But we have given them 3 refunds before on
Okay.
problems.
Sorry. But I know at last month's meeting, Joe had that information, so if we can have everything together for the March meeting.
Yeah, well, he's got it ready now.
That's
So
fine.
we just haven't heard from them.
Okay.
So you want to take it under advisement until March meeting?
Sure.
That's okay with anyone? Okay, item G, the bid award, Fountain Avenue Tank in Barrington.
Yes, this is for the installation of a mixing and aeration system for this tank. It's a tall 90-foot tank, so it doesn't get good mixing, especially in the summertime. You have one inlet and outlet, so the water pretty much stays stratified in the tank, so we definitely need a mixing system. And we're also looking to install the aeration system similar to what we did at the baby tank, and that helps remove trihalomethanes by aerating the water. We had looked, because of the height of the tank, and people aren't able to climb up the tank that high, we're looking to have a contractor install the system for us. We only received one bid on this, as I mentioned previously, and the bid we did get was out of our ballpark for what we were intending to spend on the system. So we were allowed to break down the bid into its components, which we did, and went back to the contractor and asked them just to give us the price for that particular section that they would do. That rather than just installing the mixing system in the vent.
What was the budgeted amount, can I ask?
Budgeted amount was approximately $160. Their original bid for the entire project was about $185. We thought that was a little high for the rest of the work. And part of the work we're going to be doing in-house, which is installing the pumps and the piping in the lower section of the system. So we feel we can contract out the mounting of the external pipe on the tank and the top piping for a relatively much lower cost.
So when everything is said and done between what we contract out and what we do in-house, will it come under the 165,000?
Yes.
Oh, good. And
We're
everything will be
looking to
done
keep
LED.
within budget, yes.
Okay, all right. So the bid sheet here, 85,560. That's what you cut out, that's,
Nope, that's the total
that's the total for there.
for this portion of the contract, yes.
And the other question I had was up, the top line on that, the $34,600 site mobilization and demobilization. Is that staging? Is that the staging to?
Yes, it's
Install.
bringing in the equipment and the staging for working inside the tank as well, because they're gonna have to mount the mixing system on it. It's a passive system. We don't have any power out there enough to be able to run a full mixing system. So it's going to be a passive, they call it duckbill system at different levels in the tank, and that promotes mixing within the tank when it's filled. And they will have to build the system, it comes in parts. We have a very narrow manway on that tank, and they'll have to put it together inside the tank. And
So how much is the
it's set up staging so they can mount it.
I guess the question is, the 85,560, what percentage of the project is that?
So that's about half the cost of the project,
That needs to be done.
of the whole project.
Of the whole project. It's about 50% of it.
Yeah, just over.
Right.
Any other questions or comments?
Are you looking for a motion to approve that?
Sure.
So made, so made.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Update on the Central Bridge and Barrington Bridge pipelines. Did you already give us that? Ken?
Yeah, it was here.
Okay,
Yep.
I thought so. Update on the Pawtucket Pipeline Phase 1, verbal. Pam, is that you?
That's me. I just wanted to mention that we are pursuing the phase one, which is the pipeline between our connection with Providence and the tank at East Providence, which will connect into their Cross Bay pipeline. We have spoken with the town administrator, the town manager rather, Paul Lamont. He is interested in pursuing this, even though the council is not. But they do have a large liability there, so he is going to be working with CDM engineers to study their existing system as to what their situation is, so they can get a professional opinion on their situation, so that it can be presented to the council. And with the information as to what needs to be done. Also, meanwhile, the Water Resource Board had some additional funding for studies, so they are looking to possibly finance the engineering work to get this program set up, as far as the project documents and bid documents to actually install the line. So once we can get everyone on board, we can request that funding, and we should be able to move forward with the installation of that pipeline.
How much money would that be?
We're looking at, of course, that would actually set up the engineering documents and the engineering work. The pipeline would still need to be financed. It would cost about $4 million. If the state was to contribute half out of the facilities management program, it would be $2 million, and which would break down to approximately $1 million each for East Providence and for Bristol County. So for $1 million, it would save provide a lot of reliance and backup to both systems. It's a good, hell of an insurance program. So we're, just to let you know, it's still being worked on, and we're still looking to move forward.
Very good. I think that's a top priority.
And you say you talked to the town administrator, or the manager, whatever that?
Yes.
Probably so. And he's gonna try and, after he gets some information, he's gonna present it to the town council?
That's what he's telling me, yes.
Once they have a better handle as to the cost is gonna be, or?
Now, he's looking at the risk involved in not doing
Oh, okay.
this line. And the fact that for, essentially, if you get down to $1 million, it's
I see.
for the risk, they have a much higher risk than we do at this point. If they lose their pipelines, they really have no water. They may get a little bit, they might be able to get a little bit from us and a little bit from Pawtucket, but not enough to supply the
You
system.
have two lines that are entrenched. Were they
Yes.
big 24-inch?
24s, Ken?
Which one?
The Crossbay pipelines.
There's two 30-inch pipelines.
230, and
There's
it's trench.
42 on the Providence side, splits to 30-inch under the river, comes back up and joins again into a 42.
For East Providence, the two pipes for East Providence, not the Cross Bay pipeline, the two,
The two in East Providence are
are
30-inch.
30-inch in the trench, right?
Side by side.
The problem is they were put in the 60s. They're in a shallow trench, so they're at risk. The valves have issues, I guess they don't work. And they run 5 miles back into the one transmission main runs 5
To
miles.
the west of
into-
Reservoir Avenue, up behind the Cellos. And I know because I had the problem for 27 years. Runs through the streets of Cranston, it's a high risk. And down under 95, it runs parallel with the train tracks or Roger Williams Park there. We dodged, they dodged the bullet many times. And it's the same pipeline material, the concrete pipe is the Providence 102-inch line that exploded. And so leave it at that. So there's a lot of risk involved.
All right, wow, okay.
Anything else? The only one other question, you mentioned the Water Resource Board would help with the engineering design.
Yes,
Can you be, once the project's gonna go ahead, is that what you're saying? Or anything before that?
well, if we put in a request to have the engineering design work done, and East Providence is on board with us, they will fund that project.
Aside from the 2 million? That's aside from
This
the
would
2
just
million?
be, start just to do the engineering documents,
Okay.
to construct the
One-
pipeline.
Once East Providence is committed that they wanna go ahead with it? is that-
Right.
Okay. Yes, that's my question.
Anything else?
Wow.
Next scheduled meeting is March 25th. Does that look good for everyone that's sitting
So
here?
far, so good. So what day, is that Wednesday?
Wednesday.
Finance committee is looking for another meeting sometime.
Do we have an issue we want to discuss? Because I mean, there's no reason for us to get together unless there's something that's on somebody's plate. You know, end of year numbers or.
And was there,
For finance committee meeting, I don't think
I
so.
don't think we need to.
were they gonna review the wage increase before the board? Or,
I think the whole board wanted to see that.
They did.
I think we're just going to do it at the board meeting.
Yeah, that's what,
What was that?
the wage numbers, you guys
Yes.
do it at the whole board. I'd rather not meet unless there's a purpose. I mean, there's, if Ray has any questions, he'll make them, if I have any questions, I'll make
Nothing at this time.
Okay.
them. Why work,
come see me.
why work harder than we have?
You have a motion to adjourn?
No, can we go back to, C, minutes, while I'm out of grass here?
Why would
Oh, okay.
Accept the meetings of the personnel committee meeting.
Okay.
Now you have a form of that.
I'll move that we accept the minutes of the personnel committee meeting.
Brad seconds.
Second.
Second?
Now to the vote to vote.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
Sure, we just do it under that condition.
Yes, you can still always go.
Save that ink, we don't have to put it on the next agenda.
We just saying just the members of the committee
If
can
you're doing
vote
the
on their
subcommittee,
own
yeah, I mean,
minutes.
you're all.
That's it.
That's it?
That's it?
Thank you.
Okay.